Well, thanks for staying with us. It certainly was worth staying with us. Every now and then in your sporting life, you get a chance to sit in front of one of the greats at their sport. This man, VFL, AFL legend. If you don't mind, I talk about the legend, Murray Weideman. Murray, thanks for coming in.
Good, thanks, Phil.
Now, mate, there's so much to talk about, so short time. Let's go back to 1953. You're a 17-year-old playing your first grand final off the bench. How'd you get to the game?
Well, my parents, we had business to see, and I said to Mum and Dad, and on the Thursday night, Gordon Carline gave me one ticket. He said, if you're in the team on Saturday, there's a ticket to get into the ground. And I thought, well, Mum and Dad, well, if they don't get there at about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, you'll never get into the ground. So I said to them, you go about 10:30, 11. They got in their little Ford car and off they went. And I said, I'll lock the shops up at about 1 o'clock, ride my bike up to the Fairfield railway station, jump on the train there and get to Jollymont. So I did that. I put my bike into the stall where you put your bike, lock it away for the weekend. And I got on the train, got to Jollymont, and I got my ticket in my hand, I got my Gladstone baggie, and I walked down to the gate, just down there from the railway station, and I showed the ticket, and the police, no, players, you go around the front, you go through the MCG main entrance. So I did that. I went and Jim Phelan was at the door of Collingwood where they were, and you're virtually knocking on the door, and opened the door, and big Jim Phelan said, well, God, congratulations. I walked in, I sat down, and no one said a word to me, and I was like, now this is strange. I'd never been to I'd been to the MCG so many grand finals, but never played in one, and I thought, this is strange. So I sat down there, they give you a pair of boots, and I had my jock strap and my shorts, and they give you a jumper, and I sat there, and because I was only probably a kid of 17, probably this kid doesn't know much about football, so I got dressed and that, and I sat up in the back row. And I stood there, and Kine got up and said about tradition and all this business, and said, right, out we go. So in those days, the players just walk around the boundary line, you sit there with your dressing gown on, and I'm sitting there, and I thought, well, let's see what happens. So anyhow, Pat Toomey rolls his ankle in the first quarter, and I thought, hell, I'll get on here. I'm a half-forward flank, he's a half-forwarder, so I'll get on. Kine looked down the road, down the other players, George Hams, his back pocket player, 5'7". He said, Hams, you're on. I said, this is not fair dinkum, is it? I said, that's ridiculous. He's a back pocket player and I'm a half-forward player. Anyhow, Hams runs on. I sit there for a half time. I go in and listen to another speech, and then at three-quarter time I got on the ground. And this is the amazing part. Everywhere I went, the ball went. So my first ball, it fell in my arms because the coach said, just run around the ground, because I was pretty fit. So anyhow, I get there and I turned to Lou Richards, who was just there, and I said, Lou, what do you want me to do? He said, just kick. Kid, called me Kid. He didn't even know me name. He had no idea.
Played in the grand final.
He said, Kid, just kick the bloody thing as far as you can. So anyhow, that's what I kept doing for the last quarter. I had 9 kicks, so I was going pretty well.
What an introduction. You know, I asked my old man, I said, listen, give me some people in today's day and age that you can compare Murray Weideman to. And I said, what about, you know, the Sam Newman, Eddie Maguire? He said, no. He said, you're thinking too small. Think Brad Pitt, think George Clooney. He said, that's what you should be thinking. He said he had the women like this. He could do anything, Murray Weideman. It was a great career. That was the start. But it's been a great and interesting career for you.
It was. It was a great industry. But the things that I do regret, I regret not having a manager. Because whatever Collingwood said in those days, you had to sign a Form 4. Okay. So you just signed that, and they said, in my days, £10 a game you will get when you play for Collingwood. Because I was played in the seconds, thirds, then the seconds, then the seniors in that order. That was the way I planned it. Yeah. So, and they said £10 a game. Yeah. So I played 6 games in the 1952 with the thirds, and then I went to the thirds in 53.
Yes.
Played 2 games, then played 12 with the seconds. My first game was at Geelong, and I was playing with the big boys. Now, you've got to think of that. You know, the big boys were the big boys. They're the blokes that didn't make the seniors. Yeah. They were playing in the seconds. So Charlie Harding was the coach, and I said, how old is Gunn? He said, look, I got the big boys. They'll look after you, don't worry. So that got by, and then I played 12 in the seconds, and then Jack Hamilton, he got injured. He broke his arm down at Geelong. And so I got my first game against Carlton. in 1953, and then I went on, played their next 3 games, and then I was picked in the grand final. We played Geelong in the grand final, beat them by 3 goals, and that's where it all started, and being the youngest player ever to play in a winning grand final team.
1958, you talk about big boys needing to protect the young boys. 1958, Frank Tucks is injured, can't play. You get the role as captain.
Yeah.
You're the enforcer. Send some shivers down Ron Barassi's spine. You shake up a few people. Most people that I talk to today that can remember that say you solely got Collingwood over the line by 3 goals to win that premiership. What do you remember?
Well, I remember the first quarter going past, and I said to Hooker Harrison, I said, now Hooker Harrison, there's 99,000 people here today. We were beaten 12 goals by Melbourne in the second semi-final. So I said, we've got to do something, Hooker. I don't care who you take out or I take out, so you just do anything. So Hooker and I, you don't pick on the big boys, Big Bob Johnson and Johnny Lord and those blokes. You pick on Hassan Mann and a couple of the wingmen and this smaller blokes. And I know that's not fair to play that way, but we would have, if we hadn't have done something in that second quarter, we would have been right out of the game. Anyhow, after us taking a few blokes out, Hooker and I was walking up the race getting half time, and Kine was standing there. He looked at me and he said, whatever you're doing, just keep doing, would you? You're going pretty well. So anyhow, we were 3 points in front at half time. And then we were 3 goals in front at 3/4 time, and I can remember Norm Smith saying, they've got you, we got them in. Because it rained at about 11 o'clock, the rain started, which suited Collingwood beautifully. Anyhow, we won by 3 goals, and it was the greatest thrill. You imagine a young kid, 17, playing in your first year in a winning grand final. It was brilliant,
Copeland trophies, best and fairest trophies, 3 times Collingwood's best player, team of the century.
Wow.
Premierships. Is there any one, AFL Hall of Fame, any one thing that stands out as that one means the most to you?
No, I think the 58 grand final, if I've got to say. It was great to get in the Hall of Fame because they didn't start that till 1996, and I waited till 2007 to get in, and I thought, well, this is never going to happen in life. You know, I'll probably be in my grave by that time. So anyhow, I went in 2007. But I think that's a great thrill for most players to get into the Hall of Fame. So I'm thankful for that.
Poppy touched on it before. You're a good-looking bloke. The women liked you. How'd you go for your first date for the Premiership dinner?
Well, this is amazing. I thought we could beat Geelong, there was a girl standing behind the goals in the goal square with a little white, black and white thing, and so, and Russell Renfrey, the full back for us, was going to kick out. We were in 3 goals with about 5 minutes to go, and you can't, I thought we got this one.
You weren't thinking about women then, were you?
Well, unfortunately, I had no one to take to the Premiership dinner. So I said to this girl...
She was in the crowd?
She was in the crowd, just standing there, and she's looking at me like this, and I was about 2 yards away. And I said, excuse me, what are you doing tonight? And she said, what do you mean? I said, look, I got no one to take to the Premiership dinner. Would you go with me to the Premiership dinner? So she probably nearly had heart at that. So I said, wherever the players come out of the race, we come out the back door. Just be there. So anyhow, I got showered and changed and all that, and I can't walk out there, and here's this girl there in a black and white uniform. I said, look, I don't have a car licence. I rode my bike to the Fairfield railway station.
You can't put it on the back rack.
You call it donkey over here, so you don't want a donkey over here, do you? So I said, my brother will pick you up. I said, where do you live? She said, I live in Wellington Street, Collingwood. I said, my brother will pick you up and he'll run you to the club. We've got a bus there going out to the Elston with the Premiership dinner. So that all went well, beautifully, believe me. Now, I never said another word about this for about 50 years. I was at a car buying club lunch, and I got up there and I thought, what do I tell another story? And so I said, look, I've got to tell you the story about the girl that I invited to go with me to the Premiership dinner. So I told the story, and then... Ernie Sigley was on 3AW over there, who used to be here, and he was on 3AW, and he said, look, we're looking for a Joan Gard. She went to the Premiership dinner with Murray Weideman on Saturday night. And then Ernie said, because I spoke to Ernie after, he said, the phone rang. And she said, yes. He said, that's my mother you're talking about. She's been telling this story for 50 years. So anyhow, we went out to their house. They lived out at through Eltham out that way, and they had a house, had it all decorated, black and white streamers all over it, and they had the media got a hold of it then, and they wanted to take photos. So I had photos taken with Joan Gard, and she said while we were there, she said, now this is a funny story, Murray, the finish of this. She said, guess what my name is now? I married a Buckley.
Oh, really?
She said, I married a Buckley. I said, not Thingo, his mother, or related to that. She said, no, being Collingwood.
Amazing. Well, you mentioned when you played your first grand final, the ball just fell in your hands. Well, opportunities seem to have fallen in your hands throughout your career. And wrestling was probably one of those. And, if we look at some of the vision of you playing football, I find that just unbelievably entertaining. But you couple that with the opportunity to wrestle.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did football slowly turn into wrestling? Well,
when I'd played it 11 years, I'd played, and I started, as I told you before, I started with £10 and an extra pound as captain.
Wrestling.
Well, blokes were getting more money than I, and I went and thought, well, if I don't say something, I won't. And they offered me 300. It went to currency, then went to decimal then. Yeah. So they offered me $300, $600 a week to wrestle.
And you're getting $20 playing football?
Yeah, playing.
I'd be wrestling every day of the week.
So I had to go up to Sydney, fly up to Sydney Wednesday afternoon and be back the next morning, and I'd wrestle Saturday night after I'd played football. So the club pulled me in. They said, well, this is not right. We're thinking, the papers wrote they should get rid of me. Yeah. And I said, oh, well, if they want to do that. So they pulled me in on a Thursday night. And Jack Burns was the secretary then, and he came and he said, Murray, go and wait in the bar. They're not quite ready yet. Then we've got to make a decision whether they sack you or get rid of you, see.
For wrestling?
And I thought, yeah. So anyhow, I'd go to the bar. I'd had about 10 schooners by the time they got me out of there and down to the committee room. So I walked in, sat down. Sid Coventry was the president. He's sitting at the other end of the table. He said, now the club have made a decision. I said, Mr. President, it doesn't matter what decision they make. I will be wrestling at the Melbourne Stadium on Saturday night. I give Collingwood my love and everything I've got in my body for Collingwood. But I will be wrestling Saturday night. And got up and walked out. They nearly fell out of their chairs, they did, because I'd told them, they were paying me £10 a pound, and I was getting $600 decimal currency.
You'd be worth $10 million in today's game.
It probably was. That's why, as I said before, I wish to God I'd had a manager in my life. Because I used to, floor show, I'd be guest speaker, and I said, just give me a meal and a couple of beers, and I'll drive up to Ballarat or Bendigo or here, just to do it, to promote football and to help their clubs. I've never taken a penny in my life for being a guest speaker.
Wow.
Well, Murray, unfortunately we have to go. I'd like to spend the next 4 days talking to you.
This is 5 parts.
5, I reckon we can go at least 10 when we talk to the great man, and we will get him in again. I promise you, Murray Weideman, our very special guest with plenty of stories to tell. Time for us to go. Hope you can join us again next week. Bye, everybody.